Star Wars: The Secrets of the Jedi. Introduction. The Jedi Order is dead. All that's left now are legends. Or at least that's what's supposed to be the case. My name is Luke Skywalker, and I had everything gone as I planned, I would have been the last Jedi. Though the age of the Jedi has long since passed, most people still remember them as an ancient order of powerful knights devoted to bringing harmony to the galaxy. These peacekeepers numbered in the thousands ages ago, but their numbers dwindled until there was only one left: me. My path to becoming a Jedi Master was very different from the ones followed by those who came before me. Still, when I suddenly went from naive farm boy to intergalactic hero, I thought myself worthy enough to carry on the long-lost traditions. In doing so, I became more than just another rebel fighting against the Empire. I became a legend myself. I even believed in my own legend for a time. I thought my triumphs were the sign of a new beginning for the Jedi Order, that I could build a powerful new force of light from the ashes of a dark empire. I almost succeeded in doing so. Legends don't always tell the whole story. The heroes at their center aren't always the shining beacons of light we so desperately want them to be. They have flaws and failures. At the time, my failures were almost more than I could bear. Instead of blaming myself for them, I blamed the Jedi. I became convinced the Jedi Order had done more harm to the galaxy than good. That they were so blinded by their own light, they let the darkness creep in and take control. And so I came here, to Octu, the most unfindable place in the whole galaxy, to die. And to let the Jedi die with me. I closed myself off from the Force for years after that. Swore off the old ways. Even tried to burn the last traces of the Order to the ground. I refused to make the same mistakes again. But by removing myself so completely from the world, I was failing everyone I loved, everyone who believed in me, and everyone who ever believed in those ancient legends of noble warriors destined to bring light to the darkness. It had taken years of exile to convince myself I was doing what was right, but all it took was one young girl to show me how wrong I had been this whole time. I was focused on letting the Jedi die for so long, I had almost forgotten why they lived in the first place. Perhaps it's time to walk that path again. After all, what good are legends if we can't learn from them? The Jedi Code. Each member of the Jedi Order, from the youngest initiate to the wisest master, was devoted to following the Jedi Code. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. The Jedi Code itself may seem simple upon reading it, but the true challenge is living it. Passion can rise to the surface. Emotions can cloud our thoughts. Chaos can spiral us into unfathomable darkness. We all find ourselves staring into the abyss at times. Only those who find a way to rise above the darkness are deemed worthy to become Jedi. The Force. One can't begin to understand the origins of the Jedi Order without first understanding the Force, which is not an easy task. Because of its mysterious nature, there has been a long common misconception that the Force is merely a power belonging to the Jedi. That couldn't be further from the truth. The Force belongs to no one, yet it lives within all of us. It is life, death, rebirth, and everything in between. It is the energy that connects us all and binds the galaxy together. And like any great power, the Force can be used for both good and evil. Force alignment. While the Force may flow through every living being, not everyone can hear its call. Those of us inherently inclined to harness the Force's vast energies must make a difficult choice, to use its powers either for the greater good or for personal gain. The light side. Those who steer towards the light side of the Force naturally tend to be peacekeepers. They want the galaxy to be a better place and will take selfless action to protect others and promote harmony. The light side of the Force is one ruled by logic rather than feelings. As such, the Jedi believe that a clear head makes decisions that benefit all, while a mind clouded by emotion makes choices that only benefit the individual. That's not to say that those who choose the light side aren't without fault. We all occasionally follow our hearts instead of our heads, sometimes with disastrous results. But those who are committed to the light side are often able to find a way back to their true path, even when impulsiveness temporarily leads us astray. The draw of the dark side is strong. However, so a Jedi must consistently be mindful of its influence. The dark side. Yoda, perhaps one of the greatest Jedi masters of all time, once told me that a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, but never for attack. Those who can't resist channeling the power of the Force in aggressive ways are embracing its dark side, whether they intend to or not. In doing so, they reject the teachings of the Jedi and let strong emotions such as fear, rage, and hate rule their decisions. They use the Force in selfish ways, to control others and to cause pain and suffering. For them, the power is the ultimate goal, and there is no power greater than the Force. Many good people have given in to their fears and fallen to the dark side. My father, Anakin Skywalker, was one of them. I too stand on the precipice, clearly unable to resist its seductive call. One wrong choice, no matter how well intended, can send a Jedi down the dark path. Balance in the Force. Using the Force properly is all about finding balance. And some Force users, particularly Force-sensitive children, known by the Jedi as younglings, are able to tap into its energies without an obvious alignment to either side. The Force simply flows through them in its purest form. Based on the constant struggles I've witnessed between the light and dark sides of the Force, perhaps their innate neutrality can teach us all a valuable lesson. Midichlorians. During the time of the Galactic Republic, the Jedi used science to explain why some of us feel the Force more strongly than others. Prospective younglings were tested by the Jedi Order for midichlorians, microscopic lifeforms that reside in all living things and impart the will of the Force to their hosts. Those with a higher number of midichlorians were able to hear the will of the Force more clearly than others. Personally, I've never been one to worry about exactly how the Force whispers to me. All that matters to me is that it still does. The Old Republic. The Force may have always been with us, but based on what I've been able to piece together from the ancient texts here on Ahch-To, it seems the Jedi Order has existed for nearly as long. While most accounts of their earliest days has been lost to the ages, it's clear that the Jedi Order started thousands of years before I even held a lightsaber. What was once a simple religious sect devoted to the light side of the Force evolved into the most influential groups of peacekeepers in the history of the galaxy. Order from Chaos. Despite some gaps, a number of defining moments from Jedi history were carefully preserved and passed down through the generations, particularly tales about the Sith, a rogue faction who embraced the dark side of the Force. The Jedi and Sith battled each other over countless generations. The Sith were eventually exterminated, or so it seemed, and order was restored. From the ashes of that conflict, the Galactic Republic was born. With the Sith no longer a visible threat, the Jedi expanded their role, dedicating themselves to maintaining justice and preserving harmony across the known galaxy. They also worked hand in hand with the Republic's Senate on important diplomatic initiatives. The Jedi didn't anticipate it, but their close ties to political power would eventually lead to the fall of their order. Jedi High Council. Though the Jedi served the whims of the Senate in the days of the Galactic Republic, they were still governed by their own independent ruling body, the Jedi High Council. The council convened at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and had 12 seats, each filled with a highly experienced Jedi Master. This group conferred directly with the Chancellor on matters of galactic importance. When the Galactic Republic was threatened by a violent separatist movement, it was the Jedi High Council that helped devise a plan to protect it at any cost, and that cost proved to be higher than they ever imagined. The Clone Wars. As Separatists assembled a droid army to overthrow the Galactic Republic, the Jedi who had sworn to defend the Republic went from being peacekeepers to soldiers. Though the Jedi Order had thousands of members in its ranks when the fighting began, the Jedi High Council knew their numbers would not be great enough to defeat the endless legions of mass-produced droids they would face. Working with the Senate, the Jedi oversaw the training of a clone army that would be used to protect the Republic. These genetically engineered soldiers were designed for combat and would serve on the battlefront under the command of the Jedi who had been appointed generals of the Grand Army of the Republic. End of the Order. As the Clone Wars reached their climax, it looked as though the Jedi and their clone army would be the ones to claim victory. If only they had known that the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, Sheev Palpatine, had secretly orchestrated the whole conflict as part of a plan to take control of the entire galaxy. When the Chancellor's betrayal came to light, a number of Jedi Masters confronted him, but they were slaughtered by the power-mad tyrant. The Chancellor, now revealed to be the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, issued Order 66, a secret protocol that forced the clone troopers to turn on the Jedi generals and murder them in cold blood. Few Jedi survived, and those who did, including 2 who would one day become my masters, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, went into exile as the dark side rose and the Empire began to dominate the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker. Originally a slave from my home world on Tatooine, my father, Anakin Skywalker, was brought into the Jedi Order as a young boy. Many Jedi believed that he was the chosen one, identified in the ancient Jedi prophecy, and therefore destined to bring balance to the Force. Anakin quickly became a highly skilled Jedi Knight, but he was known to follow his heart instead of his head, often putting him at odds with the teachings of the Jedi Order and his master, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Desperate to protect those he loved from harm, Anakin was coerced by Darth Sidious into betraying his fellow Jedi. In doing so, he succumbed to the dark side, becoming the Sith Lord's apprentice, Darth Vader. He had indeed succeeded in shifting the balance of the Force, but in an unforeseen way, by ending the Age of the Jedi and ushering in a new dark era. Anakin nearly died at the hands of Obi-Wan during a fiery duel on Mustafar, but he was reborn in its wake as the dark harbinger of the new Empire. Jedi Masters and Knights. Despite public perception, the Jedi weren't perfect. They were people, beings from countless species, who had selflessly devoted themselves to making the galaxy a better place. In my younger days, it was their epic adventures on distant planets that inspired me. But now, it is the members of the Jedi Order themselves who I find fascinating. Knowing who they are and how they serve the Jedi Order helps us follow in their footsteps. Many of these Jedi became one with the Force long ago, but their stories have lived on and their names deserve to be remembered. Qui-Gon Jinn. While he may not be a Skywalker by blood, Qui-Gon Jinn shares a deep connection to my family's history through the Jedi Order. This revered Jedi Master trained Obi-Wan Kenobi, who in turn trained my father and then later became my mentor. Qui-Gon was well known for listening to the Force more than the Jedi Code, a trait that often put him at odds with the Jedi High Council. Master Jinn was killed by Sith Lord Darth Maul prior to the start of the Clone Wars, but he was the first of only a few Jedi who discovered a way for his spirit to transcend into physical form. Obi-Wan Kenobi. After the death of his master, Obi-Wan devoted himself to Qui-Gon's final wish, training young Anakin Skywalker. Together, Obi-Wan and Anakin became a formidable force in the war against the Separatists, leading clone troopers on a number of daring missions. Obi-Wan grew into a respected general and selfless Jedi Master over the course of the war. But everything changed when my father betrayed the Jedi Order, and Obi-Wan was forced to strike him down. Obi-Wan went into exile, becoming Ben Kenobi, a mysterious old hermit who lived out in the deserts of Tatooine. Little did I realize he had dedicated his entire life to secretly watching over me to ensure I was safe from the Empire, and from my own father. Kit Fisto. Hailing from the watery planet Glee and Selm, Kit Fisto was easily identified by the large black eyes and large head tentacles, traits of the amphibious Nautolan species. A member of the High Council, Master Fisto was also known across the galaxy as one of the finest duelists to ever grace the Jedi Order. Legend has it, he was even capable of holding his own against the cyborg warrior General Grievous. Fisto was also a celebrated general during the Clone Wars, fighting campaigns from Geonosis to Mon Cali. His service to the Order ended when he was slain by Darth Sidious. Ki-Adi-Mundi. When Jedi Masters needed advice, they often sought out this wise Sirion, who sat on the Jedi High Council. His logical way of thinking made him an excellent strategist, a trait Master Mundi employed on the front lines of the Clone Wars. Sadly, Mundi's strict adherence to logic often betrayed his ability to react to improbable developments, such as the return of the Sith. Even his powerful binary brain could never have predicted his own clone troopers turning against him on Magneto following the execution of Order 66. Shaak Ti. A member of the Jedi High Council, Shaak Ti was the Jedi Master chosen to oversee the Republic's cloning initiative on Kamino. A Tigreda, hailing from the planet Shilla, Master T was in charge of training the clone troopers for combat against the Separatist army. She was likely given the assignment because she excelled at both combatant and a teacher. The lessons she passed on to the clones proved to be more effective than Master T could have ever imagined, as far as too many Jedi would eventually learn. Plo Koon. A Keldor from Dorian, Plo Koon had to wear special equipment to survive the oxygen-rich environments, but he lived through most of the Clone Wars on skill alone. Plo earned a reputation as one of the best pilots in the Jedi Order, dominating the skies until he was ultimately betrayed by the clones under his command. Despite his penchant for taking dangerous missions, Master Plo Koon was known for his calm and kind demeanor. He saw the best in the fellow Jedi, especially in a young girl named Ahsoka Tano, with whom he had formed a lifelong bond after he discovered her on Shili. Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano was the former Padawan, the Jedi term for apprentice, of my father Anakin Skywalker before he turned to the dark side. During the Clone Wars, Ahsoka matured from an impulsive young trainee to a trusted commander. However, unlike her fellow Torgroda Jedi Shaak Ti, Ahsoka never went on to become a Jedi Master. When she was framed for the attack on the Jedi Temple, Ahsoka chose to leave the Order, despite being exonerated of the crime, and walk her own path. After the rise of the Empire, Ahsoka found her calling, providing vital information and assistance to the rebel forces under the codename Fulcrum. Yoda. Grandmaster Yoda was more than 800 years old by the time the Clone Wars began, yet he was still one of the most skilled fighters in the Jedi Order. A long-time member of the Jedi High Council and a prominent general in the Clone Wars, Yoda narrowly escaped Order 66, retreating to isolation in the swamps of Dagobah. By the time I found Master Yoda, the years had taken their toll on his body, but the Force was still strong in him. Yoda helped me overcome my fears and unlock the true potential of the Force. Unlike most Jedi, who take on a handful of apprentices during their lifetime, Yoda is said to have trained thousands of Jedi. I hope every one of them felt as fortunate as I did to have the opportunity to study under him. Mace Windu. This respected member of the Jedi High Council and general in the Clone Wars was a true defender of the Jedi Order and all that it stood for. Although he fought valiantly for the Grand Army of the Republic, Master Windu was never comfortable with how the Jedi and the Senate had become so deeply intertwined. He remained suspicious of the motives of those in political power, an instinct that proved well-founded when Supreme Chancellor Palpatine was revealed to be the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. Master Windu led a group of Jedi Masters to arrest the corrupt leader, and had my father not betrayed him, he might have bested the Dark Lord in combat. Depa Billaba. Born on Caklita, Master Depa Billaba began her studies as the Padawan of Mace Windu, and eventually earned a spot beside him on the Jedi High Council. She was known for her deep connection to the Force, and willingness to make personal sacrifices for the sake of others. This became abundantly clear on Kalar when her clone squadron turned on her in accordance with Order 66. Master Billaba gave her own life to protect that of her Padawan, Caleb Dume. The younger Jedi escaped the culling thanks to the Master's actions, surviving to fight another day and with another name. Kanan Jarrus. Caleb Dume hid his past from the world for many years to avoid the Great Jedi Purge, but when the time came for him to take a stand against the Empire, he resurfaced as Kanan Jarrus, returning to his master's teachings and joining the battle alongside a group of early rebels. While fighting Imperial forces across the galaxy as a member of the fabled Spectre Cell, Jarrus decided to take on his own apprentice, a boy named Ezra Bridger. Jarrus ultimately sacrificed himself on Lothal to save the lives of his beloved team of rebels. I imagine Master Billaba would have been proud. Luminara Unduli. An esteemed Jedi and effective general during the Clone Wars, Luminara Unduli waged a number of important campaigns alongside my father and Obi-Wan Kenobi, including multiple battles on Geonosis. Sadly, this Marillion Jedi suffered an even worse fate than her fellow Jedi Masters. Captured by the Empire and taken to a prison known as the Spire, she was executed by the Grand Inquisitor. For years, Unduli was rumored to still be in captivity, but it was merely a ploy used by the Empire to lure any exiled Jedi who might be tempted to try to save her. Alea Secura. This Twi'lek Jedi Knight, Alea Secura, might not have held a seat on the Jedi High Council, but she earned more than enough accolades on the battlefield during the Clone Wars. She was renowned for her leadership abilities, as well as her strength, compassion, and fearlessness. Secura was unable to avoid execution at the hands of her own clone troopers when Order 66 was enacted. However, her death was one of many that echoed across the galaxy, causing a disturbance in the Force and alerting some of her fellow Jedi to the unexpected threat. Even in dying, Secura and her fellow Jedi Knights continued to save lives. Quinlan Vos. If the Jedi Order was built on strict rules of conduct, the Kiffer Jedi Master named Quinlan Vos built his reputation on breaking them. Although Master Vos's methods may have been unorthodox, they were certainly effective. He was best known for his unique ability to sense someone's memories by coming in contact with an object they had touched. Vos was also known for his illicit romance with Sith disciple Asajj Ventress. She helped Vos return to the light after he was forced to embrace the dark side by the Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus. And though his forbidden love was destined to die, Vos is rumored to have been one of the few Jedi Masters to survive the Great Jedi Purge. Hulick. Long ago I came across the tomb of a Jedi Knight called Hulick in the Rodian swamps. Like most of his fellow Jedi Knights, Hulick served as a general during the Clone Wars and was struck down as a result of Order 66. There aren't many stories about Hulick in the Jedi texts, but his niece told me how he once flew alongside my father in battle. According to her tales, when her uncle was mortally wounded, he programmed his ship to return home for his final rest. Hulick's niece entrusted me with his lightsaber, which I quickly managed to render useless, thanks to my youthful euphemism and ignorance. Fortunately, my skill at rebuilding Jedi weapons improved over the years. The chronicles of the Jedi are nearly endless, filled with tales of hundreds of masters and knights, and just as many Padawans and younglings, all devoted to making the galaxy a better place in the name of the Force. While few of these noble warriors lived beyond the rise of the Empire, their legends and their teachings showed me what it meant to be a Jedi, lessons I can draw inspiration from today. Jedi Starfighters. Flying always came easy to me. Growing up, I thought I was special, but it wasn't until I finally let the Force be my guide that I started to realize that my innate abilities might actually be coming from a source far beyond my control. In fact, most Jedi were known for their exceptional proficiency in the cockpit, tuning into the Force on a near subconscious level to pull off seemingly impossible mid-air maneuvers. During the Clone Wars, Jedi were commonly seen blazing through the skies in light interceptors like the Delta-7 Easterspite and the ETA-2 Actis. While I loved my X-Wing fighter, it would have been an honor to fly alongside Jedi legends in one of those beauties. Jedi robes. Traditional Jedi robes might look fairly plain, but that was the point. The Jedi were more focused on serving the will of the Force than on material comforts of the physical world. As such, they needed simple garments that kept them protected from the elements on a variety of planets, allowing them to blend in with a myriad of cultures and also provide them with the freedom of movement needed in combat. While the color and style of the robes could be customized according to individual tastes, a Jedi's attire tended to include the same basic elements: belted tunics with pants and boots covered by a long hooded cloak. While some Jedi incorporated traditional elements from their homeworld's culture into their clothing, most Jedi robes were a basic tan or brown. Jedi gear. Beyond their lightsabers, Jedi also carried a wide variety of equipment with them on their missions. Those items included small grappling hooks for scaling difficult obstacles, comlinks, and handheld holographic projectors for viewing and transmitting important information, and breathing devices for surviving on planets with underwater civilizations or unwelcoming atmospheres. Most Jedi carried these items in the pouches of their utility belt issued to them by the Jedi Order. These simple tools could often mean the difference between life and death in the field. Jedi armor. During the Clone Wars, the Jedi Order quickly evolved from their stoic peacekeepers to war-torn generals. Because of the Jedi's dangerous position in the front lines, traditional war robes weren't always enough to protect the members of the Order from the consistent barrage of attacks unleashed by the Separatist droids. To meet this threat, many Jedi incorporated armor, usually modified from the standard issue clone trooper gear, into their ceremonial garb. Though some Jedi wore full suits of body armor during battle, others donned only a few key pieces such as the chest plates and gauntlets. The dark side. Just as the Jedi drew on the power of the light, the dark side was the Force has many practitioners, all of them fueled by hate, anger, and fear, and willing to do whatever it takes to claim power for themselves. We must be mindful, however, that even the most noble of us can stray onto the dark path if we let our emotions cloud our journey. While Darth Vader was known throughout the galaxy as one of the most feared agents of the dark side, there are many others who have harnessed this and its might with devastating results. The Sith Lords. The most fearsome of the dark side acolytes, the Sith, have been trying to snuff out the light for thousands of years. It was an early Sith Lord, Darth Bane, who decided there should only be 2 Sith Lords at any time. This so-called Rule of 2 was built on betrayal and a particularly vicious circle. In the Sith hierarchy, a master of the dark side of the Force trained an apprentice, fully aware that their pupil would one day seek to kill them and usurp their power and position. The Sith have not risen again since the fall of the Empire, but history proves that they could return when we least expect it. Darth Sidious. Better known throughout the galaxy as Emperor Palpatine, this brutal tyrant's imperial forces ravaged countless star systems in the name of the dark side. But the man who would become Darth Sidious began his journey as a beloved senator from Naboo. Palpatine's secret lust for power fueled his rise through the Republic government and his eventual betrayal of all those he swore to serve. When he revealed his true nature and attempted to seize control of the galaxy, the Jedi tried to arrest him. Darth Sidious was permanently scarred by his own Force lightning when Mace Windu tried to deflect the Sith Lord's attack. Though usually hidden beneath a dark hood, Palpatine's grizzled countenance would serve as a grim reminder of the price he paid for power. Darth Maul. The first apprentice of Darth Sidious, Darth Maul was a Zabrak Night Brother from Dathomir, who was trained in the ways of the Sith from a young age. Maul was fueled by a desire to exact revenge against the Jedi for destroying the Sith Order ages ago. After he was cut in half during a battle with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Maul was long thought dead. But he returned, driven by hatred and an unquenchable desire for revenge on the Jedi and the Sith alike. Maul continued to spread chaos beyond the Clone Wars, leading the criminal organizations known as the Shadow Collective and Crimson Dawn. He would eventually face Obi-Wan again in another duel in Tatooine. However, this warrior of the dark side would not survive their encounter. Darth Vader. He may have managed to survive his duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi on Mustafar, but for all intents and purposes, the man who was once Anakin Skywalker died on that lava-drenched world. His charred remains were recovered and rebuilt into something new, the towering obsidian warlord known as Darth Vader. Now more machine than man, the love and compassion that had once ruled his decisions were replaced by pain and anger. Under the command of the Emperor, Vader decimated everything in his path on his relentless mission to crush the rebellion. Having witnessed his cruelty firsthand, I found it nearly impossible to accept that a monster like Vader could have once been the same gallant warrior that Obi-Wan had written about in his journals, which I discovered after his death. But my father's fall from grace also taught me a valuable lesson, that any of us, no matter how noble, could give in to the dark side, and if we did, the galaxy would suffer in our wake. Darth Tyrannus. Count Dooku was a former Jedi Master and a respected statesman in the Galactic Republic. He also became Darth Sidious' second apprentice after Darth Maul's presumed demise. A former Padawan of Master Yoda himself, Dooku had grown frustrated with the corruption he saw spreading through the galaxy's highest powers. He took matters in his own hands, renouncing the Jedi Order and turning against the Republic. As Darth Tyrannus, he was instrumental in pulling the political strings that eventually led to the Clone Wars. Tyrannus was executed in cold blood by my father, who would soon take Tyrannus' place as Darth Sidious' final apprentice. The Inquisitorius. Not acolytes of the dark side end up becoming Sith Lords, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous to the galaxy. Some of the most fervent students of the Force's darker nature were the band of Jedi hunters known as the Imperial Inquisitors. Their ranks even included former Jedi who had turned to the dark side, willing to slaughter their own in the name of the Emperor. During the early days of the Emperor, the red blades of the Inquisitors cut a swath through the galaxy as they wiped out any traces of the Jedi Order from existence. Once the Jedi were finally considered extinct by the Emperor, the Inquisitorius vanished into the darkness as well. The second sister, the ninth sister, the 10th brother, the 5th brother, 7th sister, 6th brother, and the Grand Inquisitor. A New Hope. I was born soon after the enactment of Order 66 and the fall of the Jedi Order. So for almost as long as I can remember, the world I lived in was one without Jedi and seemingly without hope. For some reason, though, I was still able to find something to hold on to. Maybe it was the Force calling me towards some great destiny, but I knew deep inside that the dark shadow cast by the Emperor would eventually have to give way to new light. Fortunately, I wasn't the only one who felt that way. Against all odds. Order 66 might have seemed like a quick and efficient method of eliminating the Jedi, but not every member of the Order succumbed to the act of betrayal. A small handful of Jedi managed to escape execution, but their numbers continued to fall during the years that followed. As Palpatine strengthened his grip, the remaining Jedi became the galaxy's most wanted fugitives, hunted down by Vader and his forces in the name of the new Emperor. When the Great Jedi Purge ended, only a few remained, most of them in hiding. Although the Jedi were forced to stay out of sight, freedom fighters opposed to the new Empire sought out these survivors using holocrons, devices designed to store important Jedi data, and scouring the galaxy for any clues that might lead them to these exiled heroes. The Jedi's guidance and stories of survival inspired even the most impressed Imperial subjects to take up arms against the Empire. Looking to the stars. While the rebels and the remaining Jedi were already assailing on the oppressive Empire, I was still stuck on Tatooine, working on my Uncle Owen's moisture farm under the planet's twin suns. Although I spent my days dreaming about battling the Empire's forces, the most excitement ever got was shooting womp rats and racing through the cannons of my T1 Skyhopper. That is, at least until Obi-Wan came into my life. Following what seemed to be a chance encounter involving a runaway astromech and overzealous Tusken Raiders. The resulting meeting was one the former Jedi Master had been preparing for since the day he brought me to Tatooine when I was just an infant. Like father, like son. Obi-Wan believed that someday I would become a Jedi powerful enough to end my father's dark reign and restore balance to the Force, finally succeeding where his apprentice had failed. It was Obi-Wan who gave me my father's old lightsaber, and who finally got me off Tatooine and out into the galaxy. Our time together was cut far too short when he sacrificed himself during a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader on the Empire's first orbital battle station, the Death Star. But while Obi-Wan may have left this world behind, he lived on in the Force, steering me on a path towards the light. It was a spiritual guidance that helped me find the focus needed to destroy the Death Star, giving the rebel forces a much-needed win against the Empire. The Jedi Strike Back. What was a huge victory for the rebels proved to only be a temporary setback for the Empire. As their reign of terror continued to sweep across the galaxy, it soon became clear that in order to play my part in the fight, I had to continue the journey that Obi-Wan had started me on. His spirit visited me, urging me to seek out a legendary Jedi Master on Dagobah system. Yoda wasn't what I expected at first, but I soon learned why Obi-Wan had sent me to him. A true master of the Force, Yoda would help me bring my Nusun powers into focus. My training with Yoda wouldn't last nearly long enough, however. I abandoned my studies when a vision I received through the Force showed me my friends were in grave danger in Bespin. A hard lesson. I rushed off to play hero, believing myself ready to face Darth Vader on my own. That was the day I learned Vader was my father, and it was the day I lost my hand, as well as my lightsaber, in battle against him on Bespin. I was lucky I didn't pay for my hubris with my life. Though the wounds ran deep, I soon learned that lightsabers and even hands could be rebuilt. As it turned out, so could Death Stars, and as the Empire prepared to use their new battle station to eliminate the Rebel Alliance once and for all, I found myself contemplating the journey my father had taken to the dark side. Balance to the Force. No matter how far my father has fallen, I sensed that his turn to the dark side was not absolute. I knew Anakin Skywalker had followed his heart to a fault during his days as a Jedi. Our ultimate victory would rely on my belief that the same heart was still beating somewhere inside Darth Vader's armor. The Emperor tried to sway me to his side, and when that didn't work, he tried to kill me. But at that moment, my father turned against his own master to protect his son. His final act was to hurl the Emperor to his death, not only redeeming himself, but also finally restoring balance to the Force, as the prophecy foretold. The Last Jedi. After the Emperor fell and the Sith Lords were vanquished, I had a great hope for the future of the Jedi. I came to believe that if a single Jedi could help bring balance back to the Force, then perhaps a restored Jedi Order could maintain the peace and prevent the dark side from ever regaining the hold on the galaxy. So I scourged worlds for the remaining Jedi texts and gathered a new class of apprentices under my tutelage. I was playing the role of Jedi Master, but it wasn't a title I had formally earned, and it was one that I would soon prove I didn't deserve. The First Order. While I was training a new generation in the old ways, the New Republic was facing a far too familiar threat. A faction known as the First Order was taking form under the influence of Supreme Leader Snoke. Unlike Emperor Palpatine before him, Snoke was not a Sith Lord, but his mastery of the dark side was equally as impressive and terrifying. Though a new resistance was forming to face the threat of the First Order head-on, Snoke knew that only the Jedi would be able to stand in the way of his march towards galactic domination. He sought to destroy our fledgling Jedi Order from the inside, and one of my pupils unwittingly became his pawn. Kylo Ren. He might now be known as the First Order's most feared warrior, but Kylo Ren didn't always walk the path of darkness. Long ago, he was one of my Padawans in the new Jedi Order, but we shared far more than just our devotion to the old ways. We shared the fabled Skywalker blood. The son of my friend, Han Solo, and my sister Leia, Ben Solo was my nephew, my responsibility, and my greatest failure. Leia could see the darkness taking hold of her son, and entrusted me with helping Ben find balance. Yet as the darkness continued to grow in the boy, I wasn't strong enough to stop it from taking hold. My mistakes pushed Ben further from the light, and he dragged the galaxy into darkness with him. After he burned our temple down to the ground, and slaughtered any students who refused to follow him to the dark side, Ben donned a mask, like his grandfather before him, and took a new name, claiming his place at the side of Supreme Leader Snoke. End of the path. I had failed to restore the Jedi Order, failed to protect my own students, failed to save my own flesh and blood from my family's dark legacy. It was clear I was not fit to be a Jedi Master, but I had finally realized a difficult truth: no one was. So as chaos continued to rise around me, I chose to end the Jedi Order once and for all. Rey. I might have been done with the Jedi Order, but the Jedi Order was not done with me. After I spent many lonely years watching porgs take roost on the cliffs of my new home on Ahch-To, a visitor suddenly arrived with my long-lost lightsaber in her hand and hope in her eyes. Rey said she had come searching for a hero, so I'm sure she wasn't thrilled with the broken old man she found in his place. Yet, the moment I saw her, I sensed something familiar in the young girl from a desert planet in the middle of nowhere, and I knew that she hadn't really come to Ahch-To looking for a hero at all. Rey needed someone who could help her harness the raw, untapped power flowing through her. She needed a teacher. The Jedi Path. At first I refused to train Rey. The power and lack of focus that I saw in her reminded me of my nephew Ben Solo all those years ago. It didn't scare me enough back then. It certainly did now. Yet I knew that if I had encountered Rey during the early days of my new Jedi Order, I would have gladly agreed to train her in the true ways of the Jedi and to pass on what I had learned. Although I had been able to train with two of the greatest Jedi Masters who ever lived, my lessons were learned in unorthodox ways while in the heat of battle against the Empire. When I began my own temple, I hoped to offer a more traditional path to the Jedi Order for my students. In the days of the Galactic Republic, a strict regime of training and testing had to be followed before a pupil could attain the distinction of becoming a Jedi Knight. That path started at a very young age. Younglings. In the old days, 4 sensitive children from across the galaxy were selected to begin the first steps on the path to becoming a Jedi. These young initiates lived in the clans at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and were trained in the Jedi arts by legendary masters. They learned how to connect with the Force and practice basic lightsaber skills. Each youngling eventually earned the honor of building their own lightsaber, with a little help from a droid called Huang. Traveling to Ilum to find kyber crystals to power their weapon, before completing a series of tests known as the Jedi Tournament. Only then could they move on to the next level of Jedi training. Padawans. Once a youngling passed the initiate trials, they were promoted to the status of Padawan learner. Unlike the younglings who were trained in clans, each Padawan was taught one-on-one by an assigned Jedi Master. Padawans developed deeper into the ways of the Force and put their new lightsabers to use on missions alongside their masters. But they still had a long way to go before they could pass the Jedi trials and become fully fledged Jedi Knights. Most Padawans were easily identified by a single long braid of hair that signified their status as a Jedi in training. Jedi Knights. After successfully passing a rigorous series of tests that challenged mind, body, and spirit, a Padawan became a bona fide Jedi Knight, a shining symbol of peace and justice across the galaxy. Fully trained in the ways of the Force, Jedi Knights were sent out into the galaxy, serving as an extension of the Order to keep the peace and restore harmony across the Republic. Jedi Knights were able to take on Padawans of their own, continuing the cycle and keeping the Order alive. As they trained their new apprentices, the Jedi Knights themselves were still honing their own skills and their personal connection to the Force in hopes of one day rising to the rank of Jedi Master. Jedi Masters. The title of Jedi Master was bestowed upon the most powerful members of the Jedi Order. With their years of knowledge and experience, these great leaders were known to have unparalleled connection to the Force. Once Darth Sidious was defeated and my father found redemption in the light side of the Force, I continued my studies and became the last of the Jedi Masters. It's a title I've struggled to live with ever since. After my temple was destroyed, I swore that I'd never take on another student. But Rey was relentless in the pursuit of her knowledge, so I eventually gave in and tried to impart some valuable Jedi lessons upon her. The truth is, I had forgotten what it meant to be a master. Holocrons. I first discovered these mysterious puzzle boxes in the personal collection of Gracchus the Hutt years ago, but they once filled Master Jocasta Nu's Jedi archives at the temple on Coruscant. Holocrons vary in shape and appearance, but are all designed to protect the most valuable treasure of the Jedi Order, knowledge. Holocrons are actually a type of secure data storage drive capable of recording important information in holographic form. These devices often hold insight into the history of the Order and valuable teachings from the Jedi Masters throughout the ages. Non-Jedi have been trying to crack the secrets of the holocrons for centuries, but it takes a Jedi Master in perfect alignment with the Force to unlock one. The Sith use holocrons as well, likely to hide the dark secrets of their own order. Lightsabers. When Rey arrived on Ahch-To, she presented me with my father's original lightsaber, which I'd lost on Bespin all those years ago. She truly believed that returning it would convince me to rise again as the Resistance's last hope for victory. That wasn't the case, but I can understand why she thought it might work. Over the centuries, lightsabers have become a symbol of the Jedi, almost inseparable from the Order itself. But while the power of the lightsaber may be a stuff of legends, it's easy to forget that these weapons are no more than a carefully crafted assemblage of metal and wires. Assembly. After losing my first lightsaber in Bespin, I was forced to walk the path of a true Jedi and build my own. Relying upon my techniques and knowledge I had acquired, I was able to assemble a new weapon, perhaps one of only a few select that have been crafted since the fall of the Jedi Order. While I may not have had assistance from a lightsaber-building droid like the younglings of old, I found that the mechanical construction of lightsaber itself was fairly straightforward. Every lightsaber hilt is customized to the individual Jedi's needs and preferences. but no matter the appearance, each weapon contains the same basic elements: power insulators, cycling field energizers, energy modulation circuits, a focusing lens, a blade emitter, and most importantly, an energy core containing a kyber crystal. Add a few more control dials to adjust the length and intensity of the blade, and you have yourself a Jedi's best friend. Styles. The sheer number of Jedi active during the days of the Galactic Republic naturally resulted in countless variations of the lightsaber's basic design. Some of these modifications were merely aesthetic, while others enhanced the lightsaber's functionality in unique ways. While the traditional single-bladed lightsaber was the design most Jedi used, some preferred creative adaptations of the classic weapon. Double-bladed. This long staff-like weapon was a blade on both ends and contained 2 kyber crystals, and twice the amount of eternal mechanisms. Some double-bladed lightsabers could be detached to create 2 individual weapons, while others, like those used with the Imperial Inquisitors, had blades that were designed to rotate freely around their hilt. Lightsaber Blaster. Combining the power of a lightsaber with the range of a sidearm, this unique dual weapon allowed its user, Ezra Bridger, to shift between blade and blaster, making it extremely versatile in combat. Crossguard. With perpendicular vents to release additional energy generated by unusually powerful or damaged kyber crystals, this cross-shaped lightsaber, based on an ancient design, emits 2 shorter side blades from its hilt that not only protects a user's hand, but is also deadly in battle. Shoto. These are more compact lightsabers, were more commonly used by Jedi of smaller stature, such as Master Yoda, but they were also occasionally used like dagger-like weapons by larger Jedi. Kyber crystals. Kyber crystals are rare gems capable of focusing and amplifying energy. They can be found on planets that have a high natural concentration of force energy, such as Jeddah and Ilum. Each kyber crystal is unique and requires a force-sensitive being to align and activate it during the lightsaber assembly process. Each kyber crystal starts out clear, but once it is awakened by the force, its color shifts to match the nature of its master. The color of the crystal determines the color of the lightsaber's blade. So the most common colors of Jedi lightsabers include blue, green, and violet. Red lightsabers are typically attuned to those who have succumbed to the dark side of the Force. Blades with damaged kyber crystals can still function, but the energy they emit are often as dangerous and unpredictable as the person willing to risk wielding them. The fact that Kylo Ren chose such a crystal for his weapon is unsurprising. Lightsaber combat. I might have refused to train Rey in the ways of the Jedi at first, but that didn't stop me from keeping a close eye on my new visitor. As I observed her practicing her lightsaber technique on the cliffs of Ahch-To, I came to realize that she already possessed raw yet impressive fighting skills. But anyone who gets their hands on a lightsaber can slice a few boulders in half. The true secret to mastering the Jedi's weapon is to use it in perfect unison with the Force. Training. It's said that wielding a lightsaber is less like swinging a sword and more like directing a current of power. When you're attuned to the Force, your thoughts and actions all become part of the same flow of energy, which is then directed through the kyber crystal and into your lightsaber's blade. But that kind of focus takes practice. In the days of the Order, younglings would study lightsaber combat from an early age at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, using low-powered lightsabers designed specifically for training. At first, their primary focus was defense, learning to block laser blasts while wearing special helmets that observed their sight. By doing so, they could learn to let the Force be their guide. Only after mastering the defensive arts could they begin to study offensive techniques under the tutelage of some of the finest duelists the Jedi Order had to offer. Offensive capabilities. Obi-Wan once said lightsabers were an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. But even if they were not as clumsy or random as a blaster, lightsabers are just as deadly in the wrong hands. That's because they are capable of cutting through virtually anything, from the limbs of a wampa to the security doors of an Imperial Star Destroyer. Only a few types of armor have been designed to withstand the power of these blades. However, lightsabers can be deflected by other weapons carrying a strong electrical charge. Defensive capabilities. The blade of a lightsaber can be used to block attacks from another lightsaber or to repel blaster fire. In the hands of a skilled master, a lightsaber blade can also be used to redirect that barrage of blasts right back to the enemy who fired them. Seasoned Jedi can even use their lightsabers to block attacks of Force lightning generated by Sith Lords. Stances and attacks. Jedi taught their apprentices a series of fighting stances and moves that, once mastered, prepared a Jedi Knight for virtually any combat scenario. When linked together, these simple moves can create a powerful series of attacks. The ready position. One of the most basic combat stances. In this position, a Jedi holds the hilt of their saber at the waist level with two hands as they ignite their blade. Low block. A Jedi extends their lightsaber to their side, pivoting the blade as needed to repel both low and middle strikes. High block. To block powerful high attacks, a Jedi holds their lightsaber overhead with two hands, keeping its blade angled downwards to absorb maximum impact. Low strike. Sweeping blows aimed at the legs can quickly disable an opponent's mobility and end a battle before it ever truly begins. Middle strike. A mid-level attack on an opponent may be the easiest to employ with either one or two hands, but it's also the easiest type of attack to block. High strike. A two-handed high attack can be extremely effective, but are used sparingly, as the aggression that fuels them can open a Jedi to the dark side. Light Force abilities. Rey's first lesson during her brief time in Octu was one of the most crucial for any potential Jedi: connecting with the Force. Just as Obi-Wan had done for me all those years ago, I instructed Rey to open her mind to the world around her. She was able to reach out and feel how the Force flowed through everything. Everything except me, that is. Though I had consciously disconnected myself from the Force's infinite energies long ago, there was a time when I devoted my entire life to learning how to utilize its powers in ways that could benefit the galaxy. The wide variety of abilities derived from the light side of the Force will serve Rey well as she faces the many trials ahead of her. Mind Trick. From Coruscant to Kashyyyk, everyone has heard of the fabled Jedi mind trick, but those who have been on the receiving end of their telepathic technique rarely remember. As its name suggests, this ability allows Force users to subtly influence the thoughts and actions of others. This simple form of mental persuasion can be used to reach a peaceful solution and avoid confrontation, causing foes to turn a blind eye or momentarily go against their instincts. This ability works particularly well on the weak-minded, but some species, including Hutts and Tadorians, are naturally immune to its influence. Telekinesis. Those adept at using the Force are able to access its energies to manipulate objects using nothing but their minds. It may seem effortless, but it's not an easy skill to master, requiring a great deal of focus and willpower. It wasn't until my training with Master Yoda on Dagobah that I began to realize its true potential, watching as he lifted the Force to my X-Wing from the swamp. I found countless valuables uses for telekinesis myself, from clearing debris in my path to calling a lightsaber to my hand in the heat of battle. Push. A Jedi traditionally uses telekinesis to move inanimate objects, but there are some occasions when one might be used to use the Force to use this ability on an enemy combatant. At those times, employing a simple telekinetic push can help neutralize an attacker and clear a path to safety. The stronger the push, however, the more likely it's going to cause serious injury. A true Jedi should only use this ability as a defensive tool, not as an offensive weapon. Jump. While the Force naturally improves the reflexes of adept users, the Jedi were able to take that idea one step, or rather, one big leap further. By augmenting their acrobatic dexterity through the Force, Jedi could vault heightened distances far beyond the capabilities of most organic beings. Many Jedi relied on their enhanced abilities to leap to normally inaccessible places or escape impending danger. Visions. Jedi are known to have elaborate and often cryptic visions of the past, present, and future. These visions can occur at any time, but are particularly common during meditation or sleep, or upon entering a location highly attuned to the Force. They could serve as grim warnings of what is to come. They also hold secrets and solutions that could aid the Jedi in their quests. Although they are filled with deep meaning, these visions can be just as mysterious as the Force itself. I've had my fair share of them over the years, and have often found myself with more questions than answers. Spirits. After Obi-Wan Kenobi fell in battle against my father, I was afraid I'd never see him again. Little did I know, he would return to watch over me as a Force spirit. At first, I only heard Obi-Wan's voice in my head, but I later discovered that he could manifest as a fully visible apparition and even interact with the physical world. In time, I would discover that not all Jedi have the power to transcend death. It requires special training that Obi-Wan's master, Qui-Gon Jinn, received from ancient Force priestesses. That knowledge was then passed down to a select few, including Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and my father. Their spirits guided me for many years, but vanished when I shut myself off from the Force. It's a relief to feel their presence again after all this time. Dark Force abilities. Rey's innate connection to the Force was stronger than I have anticipated, but that strength was still raw and unbalanced, and her mind was almost immediately drawn towards the darkness. She came to Ahch-To full of questions. The dark side was all too ready to provide her with answers. Those willing to exploit the more nefarious aspects of the Force are able to tap into extraordinary powers, but the cost of using these abilities is almost always far greater than their worth. Mind Probe. The Force's influence over the mind of other beings can be a valuable tool in the right hands, but it can easily be abused as well. Those on the dark side have been known to use the Force to read the thoughts of other beings and, if necessary, search their minds for information. This process is known for being exceptionally painful for the subject undergoing the probe. Rey told me Kylo Ren used this power on her to try and determine my location. Thankfully, she was strong enough to resist. Bond. On occasion, the Force allows us to connect with another living being and communicate with them across great distances, seeing what they see and feeling what they feel. Though this may seem like a harmless and perhaps even valuable ability, it is easily manipulated by those on the dark side. Some powerful Force users have been able to create secret bonds with others who are unaware of their connection. They then use those bonds to corrupt their target and steer their actions. Even if the unwanted bond is detected, it can still be extremely difficult to break. Choke. This ability perfectly exemplifies how acolytes of the dark side can twist the Force powers to their sinister whims. After employing a simple claw-like hand gesture to focus the attack, a practitioner of the dark side is able to use this ability to remotely strangle anyone who opposes them. Some use the corrupt form of telekinesis merely as a method of punishment and control, while others take the power much further and crush the life out of their foes. Although quite efficient, this ability is rooted in fear and designed for pain, making it a power that a Jedi rarely calls upon. Lightning. The ultimate physical manifestation of the Force is also one of the most malicious forms, and is most commonly generated by those heavily versed in the ways of the dark side, such as Sith Lords. This aggressive energy attack is usually released from the fingertips in the direction of the intended target, leading to severe injury, disfigurement, and death. Some Jedi Masters were capable of absorbing small bursts of it into their bodies with minimal damage, But after surviving a lightning attack at the hands of the Emperor himself, I can attest to how excruciating painful this weaponization of the Force can be. Worshipping the Force. While their efforts might not have been paid off in the way they had hoped, Rey and her allies in the Resistance deserve credit for managing to track me down. I didn't exactly make myself easy to find, but I chose Ahch-To for more than just the fact that it was nearly impossible to locate. I came to this water-covered world because one of the many remote islands housed the site of the first Jedi Temple, built 1,000 generations ago. Ahch-To's humble stone huts and foreboding caves may be where the Jedi began, but as the Order's influence across the galaxy grew, so did the number of places where the Force could be worshipped by devotees of both the light and the dark sides. Jedi Temples. The first humble Jedi temple was built right here in Ahch-To, but as the centuries passed and the Jedi Order spread, the thousands of temples they built across the galaxy became more intricate and unique. The most famous of the Jedi temples, located on Coruscant, served as the home of the Jedi High Council and the vast library of the data known as the Jedi Archives. When the Empire took control of the galaxy, the temple on Coruscant became their new imperial palace. Most Jedi temples on other worlds were mined for their ancient secrets by Imperial forces and then reduced to rubble. Some Jedi temples, like the one on Lothal, were hidden in plain sight and only could be found by those strong on the light side of the Force, though the Emperor was never far behind. Temple of the Kyber. This temple's enormous spire stretched high above the wall holy city of Jeddah, welcoming all believers. The temple was home to the Church of the Force, a group whose followers had no Force sensitivity, yet they still chose to follow the teachings of the Jedi Order. The Church of the Force started as an underground movement during a time when the Empire strictly forbade the group's form of worship, but their flock only grew stronger despite continued oppression over the years. The Temple of Kyber was protected by the Guardians of the Wills, a near-extinct order of fiercely loyal warrior monks, until the Jedi's holy city was obliterated when the Empire used the area as a test site for the first Death Star's superlaser. Sith Temples. While Jedi temples could be found on countless worlds during the days of the Galactic Republic, by that time, most of the ancient Sith temples had long since been buried. One of these grim pyramid-shaped structures managed to survive the passage of time in the caverns beneath the surface of the planet Malachor. This was the site of the Great Scourge, a brutal massacre that decimated the Sith Order eons ago. The temple, filled with petrified remains of those who fell in combat, lay dormant for thousands of years until it was rediscovered by Kanan Jarrus' cell of rebels. It is said that those who visit Malachor's hidden temple can be overwhelmed by rage and hate that still infuses the Jedi ashes covering the site. Fortress Vader. It seems fitting that Darth Vader's ultimate monument to himself was built so close to the site of his most brutal defeat. Constructed on top of the Sith cave on Mount Mustafar, the lava-drenched world where Obi-Wan defeated his former apprentice and left him to die, the Obsidian Stronghold was where my father would go to meditate and heal between battles. The castle's unique shape was based on designs by an ancient Sith Lord Momin, and was specifically attuned to the dark energies of that world for one purpose: to pierce the veil between life and death. It was the loss of my mother that completed my father's journey to the dark side, and finding a way to see her again became Vader's secret obsession for the rest of his days. Beyond the temple. Almost all the great shrines dedicated to the Jedi and Sith have now been lost to history. Even the oldest of them all, the sacred Jedi tree here in Ahch-To, has finally been reduced to ashes. But those who truly worship the Force understand they need not travel to a church to find it. They only need to look within themselves. And thanks to Rey, I allowed myself to do just that, opening myself up to the Force for the first time since my exile. Even though she departed Ahch-To, her presence here was felt more than she'll ever know. The Force reawakens. The Jedi Order lives on, despite my best efforts. Looking back at everything that came before, I finally realized that ending it was never my choice to make. You can strip away the ancient texts, the lightsabers, the robes, even the legends, but you're still left with two things: the Force and a person willing to use it to make a galaxy a better place. That hasn't been me for a long time. Perhaps it should have been, but no matter what the prophecies might say, it doesn't have to be. Rey came to Ahch-To looking for a hero willing to walk out with their lightsaber and face off against the entire First Order. And even though I tried to push her away, she still found that hero in herself. But she found something in me as well. She found a way to push me past the fears and doubts I'd held for so long, to remind me who I once was, who I could have been if I hadn't shut myself off from the galaxy and from the Force. For a brief moment, she reminded me why I walked the path in the first place. Master Yoda always said I was so busy looking off at the horizon that I missed what was happening right here and now. I suppose there's some truth to that. I spent so long worried about what the Jedi could become in the future that I forgot what they needed to be in the present, beacons of light in the darkest of times. And it's been far too easy to ignore just how dark things have gotten while I've been hiding away at the edge of the galaxy. But now that I've opened myself up to the Force again, it's not as easy to hide from the truth. The First Order is growing in power, and the darkness is growing with it. Rey truly believes she can reach out to Kylo Ren, to find the good within him and to bring him back to the light, just as I did for my father all those years ago. I'm not so sure it's possible. Not for him, not for any more. But even if my nephew is lost to the darkness as I fear, that doesn't mean a brighter light won't rise to drown out the shadow he's casting across the galaxy. The Jedi could have been the light if I would have let it be. I haven't changed my mind about the mistakes that I made, but I can see their failures didn't warrant an eradication of the Order. I should have learned from their failings so that I could discover how to grow beyond them into something better. Just as the Jedi of old had inspired me, maybe it's time for me to inspire the next generation of heroes, of rebels, to reach towards the light, even if the path they need to take there is different from my own. If I can do that, maybe all hope isn't lost. And maybe I won't be the last Jedi after all. May the Force be with us always. Luke Skywalker. The end.